You've written a book, the new history and evolution of ninjutsu, and I did a little review on my channel and got a lot of great feedback, got a lot of messages about it, and people asking um, more about you. So, could you tell us a little bit about what motivated you to write the book, and then if there's any like standout points that you really enjoyed about the book, or things that you learned in the process of writing the book that would be fun to share.
First of all, I want to give credit to Brandon Mowell. Without his help, it would be impossible. English is not my first language, and I kind of speak fluently, but I guess writing is always something different, creativity-wise. And I also want to point out that this is also important to me that neither Brandon nor I earn any penny from it. It all goes to charity. The motivation to write the book was, it started in the beginning of Corona. I didn't have the dojo anymore, I gave it away, but I wanted students to have opportunity to learn. So I kind of started teaching for free on Facebook, giving lessons for free, different ideas, just for people to have something to play with. And then I thought about, how great it would be, because there are so many good people out there, you or Steven and Brandon Mowell, Phil Legari, and Dean Rossaha, and what's the Swedish guy, Sven Erik Boxer. There are a lot of good people out there, really a lot of good people. So can you imagine, like, doesn't matter if you live in Australia, Ohio, Munich, or New Zealand, you could join a lesson at least once a week from the best teachers in the world. And some of them, they had an interesting history writing negative comments on YouTube or Facebook on me. So I said, let's call up everybody. And I asked him, what would you say we open such a network? We teach together, you teach Monday and you teach Tuesday, I teach Wednesday, or even once a month only. So, people can see like there's different interpretations of Ninjutsu, different focuses people lay in their training. What would you say? And most people said yes. And some people said no. One of the reasons that I heard from some of the people who said no, and I was shocked by that, because they said, if Stephen Hayes is part of it, I don't want to be part of that. So let's put it frankly, if you don't want to be part of that because of that, I don't want you to be part of that, because it's just, I said, the guy? He said, no. He said, he took anything from you? No. So how you come to the conclusion that because of him? So of course you never get a good answer. It's just like, it's childish. In the end, it didn't happen. But from the many nice conversations I had, I understood a few important things. That as insignificant as probably I am as a person, that almost everybody watched my channel, everybody watched Akbar, and everybody watched Stephen Hayes. So they all do X-Cans, whatever they want to do, but they look very much what certain people are doing. Just as, by the way, as I learned that many Bujinkan people, they watch very meticulously the Jininkan tapes, because Manaka Sensei is an amazing teacher when it comes to accuracy. And I guess some people, they like the freedom and the explosion of creativity, but they would like to know the form more correct. A friend of mine stayed with Jininkan in the end because he said he just liked the Kobudo aspect and traditional aspect. He's a doctor. He said, when do I ever get into a fight? I'm not interested in fighting. I'm interested in historic arts. And I like, this is how they very well preserved it in the Jininkan system. I think many people kind of feel lost a little bit in the struggle nowadays. I understand that the Bujinkan probably goes, from my understanding, through some struggles, like who's going to be a successor. Now there's like many grandmasters, and I think it's harmful to the art, and it's also a chance of to save the art in the same time. Because look into BJJ nowadays. Technically, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so much further evolved from back in the days before the first UFC started. The game is so much tighter. It's so much more creative and more movement, and it's amazing. On the other hand, I don't think that the same percentage-wise, the same amount of BJJ black belts are as efficient in a Vale-Tudo fight, like with no gloves or whatever, or in a street fight, as they would be in back in the days when the Gracies only did it. This is something that everybody has to get straight. There is no martial art. There is no. If I see people on YouTube criticizing other people how they do their, let's say, knife defense, and then show what they would do if they would be the attacker, and then you see another video who kind of picks them apart and shows how he would play at them. And the thing is, they're all idiots and they're all smart because they're all right and they're all wrong at the same time. Because there is no one way somebody would attack you with a knife. The mindset, the movement style, the distance. There are so many factors into knife fighting that you actually have to learn at least 5-6 different approaches to knife fighting. And it still doesn't mean that you get the right situation actually in reality. You can learn for what we would call or train for ritual fights. You know, I don't like you, I don't like your shoes, I don't like your culture, or whatever. And you know, you get into an argument, the monkey dance, whatever, and all of a sudden it's a fight. Like in the beach in Brazil back in the days, or even in Germany before, people carrying knives, like more honorable situation. And it's usually one-on-one. And it could be also in a sparring situation, it could be a mixed martial arts fight. This is one way. And then there's guards, like your bouncer, your doorman, your soldier, you're guarding a perimeter, and you have to make sure. I can't dance around and follow somebody and do smart movements while his friends enter the club. I have to kind of stand my ground. I have to fight from the place. I have to, you know, it's a different way of fighting. And then there's war, there's soldiers. This is completely different. When I hear this, what's his name, Jocko Williams, he speaks about the best martial arts is BJJ. You're a soldier. I mean, I want to see somebody in Iraq or Afghanistan pull guard on somebody while his friends shoot you or something. It's bullshit. You know, it's not a good martial arts for war. You know, it's a beautiful martial art. I love BJJ, I love Gracie's, but it's not for that. You know, it's a complete different thing. I think Ninjutsu or Shaolin Kung Fu, they are more for the times nowadays that there are riots and wars and stuff. You know, this is a different approach to fighting. And then there's multiple opponents, like 1 against 2, 2 against 3, like mass situations. And then there's when how it's called in English, when a burglar comes, when somebody's attacking you, he wants to take your money, or it's so vast in the way you in variation that there is not just one martial arts approach. And I guess like when you ask what I did to succeed. In Germany, I was teaching very much the program in a way that it would help you immediately to apply the basics in a self-defense situation. Now that I'm here in Israel, I'm teaching completely different. People are very friendly because I'm very open and very friendly with people. So I feel no social violence, and I see no social violence. I've been once in a restaurant / bar with my wife and the kids in the early evening, and there were 2 guys going at it. And I said to my wife, I go there, I want to solve the situation. Immediately 5 guys came up and said, "I'm here with my mom. Please, guys, can you keep down? There's kids in the stroller sleeping. Let me buy you a beer." So, like, you know, the people are very happy in Israel, usually. Arabs and Jews, and even together. It's not how you see it in the news. So there's no social violence, but usually when something happens, the shit hits the fan. Somebody want to kill somebody. So doing tobi, jump, picking up stones, throwing things, like more like ninjutsu, like the old school basics, more war-like training, you know, moving in angles and no straight lines and all these things. This is much more ninjutsu that's suitable for Israel, because there's not so many classical self-defense situations I feel here. This is, by the way, why Krav-Maga, even though I really don't like it so much, is so successful here in Israel, because soldiers have a vest, so they can stab you from up down here in the neck or under the vest. So it's like 1 or 2 movements while you hit in the same time. You can teach any idiot that in an hour. It's a good martial art? No. Can you do sparring with it? No. Does it steal from anybody else? Yes. Can you do it better? Yes. But you can teach it fast to a lot of people, and it's very successful. Doesn't matter if I think if it's good or not. I don't think any other art recently got proven successfully, you know, to work in a field for people who didn't really train as much as Krav-Maga. So you got to give credit to those guys. By the way, it could have been ninjutsu. You got to remember in the 80s, most of Doron's students and black belts, they were the Lebanon War, and they actually applied ninjutsu in a warlike situation. You know, you're supposed to guard a certain perimeter, and your officials tell you where. No, you don't do it from that point. You go, somewhere else from where you can see the point where you're supposed to be, and you see the perimeter you're supposed to guard. Because people might hear they spy on the radio communication, and they shoot as artillery on the spot where you're supposed to be. So by not obeying orders, but by doing it in a smarter way, you survive. Mm. Somebody created a certain system how to rescue soldiers from a battlefield. Like you carry somebody that the guy that you carry shoots, and you carry him, but you don't just run. You run in like 45 degrees in zigzag motion, up and down, three-dimensional room. So it's harder for people to shoot you. So they realized the rate of rescuing people from battlefield got better. So how to hide, how to use things. Like even my son, my oldest son, he was a paratrooper in the Israeli army. He never did what they taught him. When you do a magazine change, you don't do it stationary. He learned different. He learned from me and from Moshe Castile. He would go 45 forward, down, like in this three-dimensional movement, and then changing and like different things. And how you say global or periphery viewing things, like you watch this area so you can see your opponent, you can check for the magazine on the floor, like everything at the same time. This is very much basic ninjutsu, what Steven or Moshe or Doron would teach in the past. And so I believe that this is more what's for here. And we as teachers, we have to look, where do I live? What's necessary for people? What's interesting for people? How do they gain the most out of it? For example, I like Yari and Naginata and sword training. I like traditional weapons. But for a beginner, it might be interesting, but it doesn't help him if he gets bullied in school if he's 14 or 15. He needs to know how to get out of a headlock. He needs to learn distance management. He needs to know how to breathe, not to get into shock status. He needs to know how to look, how to control himself. And it might be not as interesting to you or me in that stage, but that's what he's coming for or paying for. It's like you're going to a restaurant, and it's a Japanese restaurant, and the guy makes you an omelet. I don't want an omelet. I want sushi, but the guy is into omelets. He likes omelets. That's what I pay for. And I believe at least most people I know, for them it's hard as martial arts teachers to understand that somehow you have to serve others.